I hand over to Jennifer. I'd just like to introduce her. Um, she is a change and communications manager based here in Brisbane. Her book, what she's here to talk about, called A Sleep Divorce. Basically, it's how to sleep apart, not fall apart, and it is a passion project for Jennifer, who has for years felt she had to justify her and her husband's decision to sleep in separate rooms. So it is co-written with Dr. Neil Stanley, a sleep expert, and aims to help people understand why sleep is so important for your physical and mental health. And we cannot wait to hear more. And I'm sure there are a lot of questions. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. Is it Mare? Is that how you say your name?
Mary.
Mary. Lovely.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for that lovely introduction. Yes, hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining this afternoon. I am here to talk about my book, A Sleep Divorce, How to Sleep Apart, Not Fall Apart. And the not falling apart is probably mainly aimed at relationships. I'll go into lots of explanations about why we have a social stigma around couples who sleep separately, and talk about all of that and all things sleep. Why did I write a book about couples sleeping apart? My journey around sleeping apart started about 20 years ago, and I met my lovely husband, who was just my boyfriend at that stage, and we fell madly in love with each other, as you do. And he moved into my house because we kind of figured this was going to be our forever arrangement, and we lasted 1 week in a bed together. And I know that sounds a little bit convenient and a little bit dramatic, but it was just the 1 week. So, what do? You meet someone, you move in together, you set up, your bedroom together, and that's what we all do, and that's what we're taught, and it happens with couples. So that's what we did. And my darling husband, who I do love dearly, but my goodness, can he snore? He's a big man. He's 6'4". He's quite well built, and he snores to match everything about him. And it was really awful that week. And it was quite heartbreaking actually as well, because of course it's lovely to snuggle in bed with your partner and to fall asleep with them and to have a cuddle and then to wake up next to them. But when I was waking up, I can tell you there wasn't a lot of feelings of love flowing from me. I'm not a person who copes very well with sleep deprivation. I know that some people can. I can't. I can't think very clearly. I don't function very well. I don't feel very good. I turn to carbohydrates and sugars, which a lot of us do when we get tired. And Fraser is a tiler, and so he has to go out and has to work, physically all day. And as the week wore on, more and more, he was starting to realize how much his snoring was impacting my sleep. Now, I did do Fraser the service of recording him snoring that week, just so he actually appreciated that I wasn't making this up. I wasn't trying to derail this new romance. So I did call the recording "The Lion Sleeps Tonight." Can't remember why I did, but anyway, when I paid it back to him, he was a little bit sort of like, oh, goodness, okay, because we don't often hear ourselves snore. Well, we don't. It's very, very rare. Sometimes people wake themselves up if they, especially you, Jeff, right? Yeah, Tasha, and that will often be that we're not getting enough air, and so we do the jolt to wake up. But we're quite oblivious to the noise that we make when we're asleep. I have become a snorer, so I wasn't a snorer when Fraser and I started, so I could kind of, angelic girl who just sort of slept really quietly all night, but not anymore. So that's quite interesting when Fraser and I do have to share a room now, because he now has a CPAP machine. So he is actually quite quiet, and I'm the person who snores, which is kind of, funny in a not, twist of fate. Exactly. So anyway, so after 1 week, we just knew it wasn't going to be something that we could do. So Fraser had brought all of his furniture from his flat and had set it up in the bedroom next to mine. the other room in the house, which was very, very close. And so we thought, right, well, we won't sleep together during the week. We'll just do the weekends. And that lasted 3 weeks because who wants to be sleep deprived on the weekend? That's when you get to do fun things. So we just went, we can't do this. And we just headed off to separate rooms. And it really kind of like, it didn't really bother us. I was a little bit sad. I did have a couple of tears, but what was more important to me was getting sleep. And it set me off on this journey because I'm a person who's quite open and I talk about, what's going on in my life. I think one of my ex-bosses actually said to me, no one's ever going to die wondering what you think, Jenny. So, that's the kind of person that I am. And so I just talked about the fact that, we were in separate rooms because everyone's like, how's it going with Fraser in the house? And it's like, yeah, it's good. We're in separate rooms. So there was some kind of immediate responses that came from that. I mean, and one, I was a little bit later in life. I didn't actually meet Fraser till I was 38. So I think everyone was kind of hanging on this one working because, it was like almost Jenny's last chance. My mother was convinced that the relationship was over. However, as I shared with the other group that day, my mother also thinks it's illegal that I haven't changed my surname after getting married. So that was some interesting thoughts from her. It kind of piqued a few people's interest. It's a bit like, okay, that's a bit different. How's this going to go? But there were some conversations that really intrigued me over the few years after we made this decision. They were mainly from women. Apologies, Alan. I haven't had too many men come to me with these sorts of concerns. There were the women who told me that they were sleeping separately, but they were too embarrassed to tell anyone about it. And that they had shame around it. They felt that their relationship was a failure because they weren't sleeping in the same bed as their partner. So that was one group. And the other group was the women who would say, oh my God, I'm so sleep deprived. I so desperately wish I could do that. Of course, I'm like, well, just do it. Just go to another room, what's so hard about that? But they felt they couldn't because of their own internal judgment. So they've got their own internal, we all do this. We have our own social constructs and norms and values and belief system that we adhere to. And that's, comes from all parts of our lives. And then, of course, there is the social stigma of sleeping separately, and that lands very, very clearly at the foot of the media because they love pointing out that someone's relationship is they're not sleeping in the same room together. So the whole drama of they've gone to separate rooms, ergo their relationship must be failing. There was a movie, and I can't think of the name of it. I write about it in my book. It was actually the week before the book got published, and it had Jane Fonda and I think who's the guy from The Shining?
Nicholson.
Nicholson, that's it, Jack Nicholson. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it starts at the beginning and they walk upstairs and they head off to separate bedrooms. And the whole point of the beginning is that their relationship is ending. It's in crisis. And I just thought, I can't believe that I am sitting in this cinema watching this movie when my book is about to come out because, it does not mean that your life is over. That was over a decade ago. So this is actually my second edition of the book. So my first edition had a different name. It was called Sleeping Apart, Not Falling Apart. And I just thought, wow, this people need this book because there's really nothing else there's no other book written about sleeping separately. And obviously what I write about in the book is how you negotiate and how you navigate and how with your partner and with lots of all the other people in your life, how do you actually talk about separate sleeping, make separate sleeping happen so that your relationship is healthy and so that you feel confident and comfortable talking about it and you can manage potential judgment from people when you talk about it. Since the first book came out, separate sleeping has morphed into being called the sleep divorce. I'm not actually a fan of the term, given the negative connotation around divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And however, it's really stuck. It's actually a bit of a big topic on TikTok. I haven't got onto TikTok. I can't bring myself to do it. But if you go onto TikTok and type in, you probably won't, and don't blame you. If you do happen to go onto TikTok and put in sleep divorce, there are so many people on there talking about sleep divorce. So from the fact that I do have a passion for this, and my goal all the time, because I don't know if any of your authors, you never really make money out of it. So I just thought, okay, I just hope that I can actually help people to become more informed about why this is okay. It has become a topic that more and more people are accepting of. And that was really what I wanted to do, as altruistic as it is be a voice out there and to help change the conversation, or create the conversation, change the conversation, and change the acceptance of separate sleeping. You may or may not have caught last year that Cameron Diaz, God bless her, came out and said that, you know, separate sleeping should be normalised. And that has been my message all the way along, is that you should be able to choose to sleep separately if it is the reason that you're doing it is for your health. And that's kind of the next bit I want to go into. Why do we need to sleep? And everyone kind of knows the answer. You got to sleep because that's what you do at the end of every day. But do we actually really know what sleep does for us? And why we need it?
Recharge the battery.
What's that?
Recharge the batteries.
Absolutely, Joanne. It is totally to recharge the batteries. And I'm going to share a little diagram with you. I've just got to find it. Can everyone see that?
Right.
No.
Right.
I got it.
Yes. Yep.
We got it coming up. There's 4 columns.
Yep.
We good?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to talk through what sleep is. Sleep is considered now, and again, this is another really big change in the last decade or so that I have been sort of involved in this conversation. We all know how critically important good diet and exercise and keeping moving is to our health. And finally, what has been added and has become what people call the third pillar of health is sleep. It is so important that you sleep well, eat well, and move well. And if you can do all of those things every day, you're giving yourself a great chance to remain healthy and happy. And it's about your mental health, your physical health, and your emotional health, because all of those things are really critically important. And we don't always get it right, but we should be trying all the time to do the best that we can to give ourselves the best chance every day to lead a good, happy life. So sleep involves going through different stages, and I'll go through these stages in a little bit more detail. Most people know that what's recommended is to get 7 to 9 hours sleep a night, and that's based on these sleep cycles. So people go through 3 to 5 sleep cycles a night. So what you're seeing on the screen here, N1, N2, N3, and REM, that's a sleep cycle. And that sleep cycle can take anywhere between, I'm just adding up 23, sort of 45 minutes to 60 minutes, up to 90 minutes. And your sleep patterns, how you sleep, how quickly you go through sleep cycles, how many hours of sleep you need, it's kind of hardwired into your DNA. So you may have friends, or you may have a partner, or you may know people who like to go to bed really early. We call them larks. They go to bed early and they wake up early. Is anyone here a lark? Early to bed, early? No? Couple
Definitely.
of people? Definitely, yep. What time do you
Absolutely.
go to bed?
Depends. About 8:30.
Okay.
Oh, Maxine's horrified.
I'm lucky if I can go to sleep before 1 o'clock in the morning.
So you're an owl.
Most definitely, I'm an owl.
You're an owl, Maxine. So lucky you're not with Alan. You'd be having some issues.
Could be
And this,
interesting.
No, he'd go to bed and I'd stay up.
and then you'd retire to your own room, Maxine. And this is it. This was another problem with Fraser and I, is that he likes to go to bed super early and I like to stay up. Mind you, as I'm getting a little bit older, I am going to bed a little bit earlier, but he is a lark and I'm an owl. And it is very difficult to change those sleep patterns. We can, and every now and then, like if you've got to get up early for something, you can do that. But if you just kind of naturally fall asleep and naturally wake up with no sort of interventions, that's how you find out if you're a lark or an owl. If you're an owl and you're trying to go to bed super early, you're probably going to struggle to go to bed because it's all to do with melatonin production and blah, blah, blah. And we won't go into that now, but that's it. So you will also find there are people who don't need a lot of sleep. There are some very clever people who only need sort of 4 or 5 hours sleep a night, and there are other people who need 9 to 10 hours to actually feel rested. My lovely co-author, Neil Stanley, so he's a sleep researcher in the UK, and he was the director of the UK Sleep Institute, I think it was called, for a while. So he's the person to ask these questions. And, you know, the question is, how do you know if you've got enough sleep? And the answer is, do you feel well rested? You know, and that's it. So we can't, not everyone is the same, just like so many other aspects of us, we need to have different amounts of time in bed. But when we're in there and we're going through these sleep cycles, this is what happens. You start falling asleep. N1, NREM stands for non-REM. When you start falling asleep, that lasts for between generally 1 to 7 minutes. You lie down and you start kind of drifting off. And if something wakes you up, you know, you'll come out of that pretty easily because you're in fairly light sleep. But if everything else is running perfectly, you should be able to fall asleep within that kind of 1 to 7 minutes, possibly up to 10 minutes. We then move into NREM, or stage N2, and that's a lighter sleep. And this is where your heartbeat and your breathing start to really slow down. Your eyes stay you know, without movement, your body temperature goes down. And a really important part that happens in N2 sleep is what's called sleep spindles. If you have learnt anything during the day, or if you have taken on new knowledge, could be that you learned something new in an Inclusee session, which is kind of exciting, your brain will program that in and create sleep spindles. So they're little tiny, imagine little teeny tiny bits of wire that go between all of the parts of your brain that help you remember things. When students are studying N2 sleep, because those sleep spindles get into their brain and help them retain information. You know, the old adage of, you know, I'm just going to sleep on it has got a lot of veracity to it, because if you are learning something and you sleep, you are more likely to remember it the next day. And that is probably because during N2, your brain produced sleep spindles and helped embed that information into your brain. So we're lasting about 25 minutes in there, max. It can be as short as 10 minutes, depending on how tired you are. And then we get to the really, really important one, and that is N3. And this is often called deep sleep. So when you hear the term deep sleep, if someone's in deep sleep, they are in N3. And this is when your body is doing its most work. So your heart beat and your breathing slow right down. You definitely don't have any eye movements. You're just staying still. Your body is fully relaxed, and it's the part of sleep where you would move the less. So if you're a bit of a, you know, person who hops around and rolls around in bed, whatever, you're unlikely to move during deep sleep. And it's when your body is repairing both physically and in your brain as well. So the delta brain waves are present, which again helps kind of reset the brain. And, you know, a bit like turning a computer off and turning it back on again, and everything kind of gets reset to work really well the next day. But the tissue repair and the growth and the cell regeneration is so important to allow your body to fix itself. So if you do have any illness, if you're not feeling very well, if you've had an operation, if anything has gone wrong with you physically, sleep is so important to help your body repair and to give it time to repair. So if you're missing sleep and you do have something wrong with you physically, you're not giving your body the best chance to get better. The immune system strengthens. Again, if you've got a cold, if you've got a flu, you've got something, get into your N3 sleep and you're going to feel better. And one thing that's not specifically noted on here is there's a waste management system in your brain, and it's called the glymphatic system. And it's actually a series of tubes that carries fresh fluid into the brain, and that fresh fluid flushes out any plaques or any fluid that can damage the brain, and it gets rid of it. So your body does that whole, we've got all, think about all the different types of waste management systems that we have in our body. But what happens in your brain during N3 sleep is so important. When I wrote my first book, there was some very early research into a plaque that builds up in the brain that's called beta amyloid. And the research has continued, and the lovely sleep researchers that have looked into it have proven now that a buildup of the plaque beta amyloid can be it's one of the precursors, one of to Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So if you are not getting your brain and giving your brain the chance to get that flushed out, and it's not, doesn't necessarily mean that you will have Alzheimer's, it's just one of the precursors for it. So if there are other things that you have that are other precursors, then you don't want to include this one in it. You want to try and, as I said, give your body the best chance it has of being healthy and happy. Deep sleep, N3, goes for about 40 minutes. Now, if you are disturbed or disrupted by a partner or by anything that wakes you up in N3 sleep, one thing is you're going to feel quite groggy and it's going to be hard to wake up. But the other thing is you don't go back to sleep and back into deep sleep. So once you have been woken, you start back at N1. And you've got to go through N1 and N2. You might get to N3 faster, but if you are in a situation where you are being consistently disrupted in your sleep every night and you are not getting through the whole stage of deep sleep of N3, that's an issue. And if you're doing that night after night after night, and you may love your partner to death, but if they are snoring or they are rolling around or they need the room hotter than you can take it or colder than you can take it, all sorts of the issues. We've got restless legs, we've got all manner of behaviors that can interrupt our sleep. So if you're putting up with that and you're not getting into the deep sleep, it is an issue and it's something that you should do something about. Whatever that may be. So once we've gone through deep sleep, we then get to REM. And REM is where we dream. Who here is a big dreamer? Anyone here dream every night?
Yeah.
Oh, Mary, yep. I can't see everyone because I'm sharing my screen. Rachel. So this is where, Jess, yep. So this is where your brain starts going off on a flight of fantasy. And, you know, you're having the talk about the American elections next week. I had a dream the other night that I had JD Vance crawling through rafters in my house, believe it or not. The good news is he fell through and crashed to the ground. And if anyone could tell me why I dreamt about JD Vance, I was holding a little kitten. You know, dreams, into other people's dreams is absolutely dire, but I woke up and went, what was that all about? Like, you know, so I have absolutely no idea. But when we go into REM, we actually are paralyzed effectively because our brain is doing all sorts of things. Our eyes are moving. That's why it's called rapid eye movement. And we're doing all sorts of things, but we shouldn't be able to move. But this doesn't happen for everyone. And this is one of the sleep disorders, is for people whose bodies don't go into that paralysis state. And Tasha, you just have to tell your story because it's such a great story. A wonderful story about what happened with her husband. So Tasha, over to you.
This is awkward because my husband's home now. When I told the story yesterday, he was at work. But anyway, he has the sleep disorder where he doesn't, his brain doesn't have the little switch that says don't move when you dream. So he acts out his dreams regularly. And one of his dreams, he dreamt that somebody had broken into the house and he chased them out the back and chased them to the back fence, and they jumped over the back fence and he grabbed them and yanked them back down. But that was my hair that he was grabbing hold of. So I woke up to him yanking my hair across the bed. And yeah, I then went and read Jenny's book and we sleep in separate rooms.
Good idea.
Yes. So it can be a bit problematic if you and that's where people, so you'll sometimes hear of people who still get up and sleepwalk. So this is where sleepwalking can happen. Because your brain has started to become active again. It's kind of turned itself back on after it's done all its cleaning. Your body is supposed to be paralyzed. So if people are up sleepwalking, chances are they're in REM sleep. And so they don't actually know what they're doing. They don't have conscious ability to control their body. And as Tasha said, that little switch that paralyzes them hasn't come on. So that's what you are doing every night when you go to sleep. And if you have a great restful night's sleep and you wake up and, big stretch and gee, I feel good this morning, you have been doing this all night. Your body has been very kindly doing it for you without any sort of request. And anything that stops you in the middle, you should be dealing with. So, snoring partners are one issue. We do have animals, we have all sorts of things. Does anyone here want to share if they have any particular issues that keep them awake at night?
Got a story, but the other way around. My wife
Yes.
had Alzheimer's, and I was
Mhm.
we're sharing the same bed, and she snores. When she stopped snoring, I wake up immediately to work out where she's gone. So
Wow.
what I should have done is take the snoring. So when she passed, I had problems sleeping. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Do you know that, Alan, that's not an uncommon story. In all the people I've spoken to, there's a lot of women who are mothers who say that they keep an ear out for their baby breathing or hearing movement. And if they
Yeah.
don't hear it, it wakes them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
we're
can
funny
relate to
beasts,
that
aren't
one.
we?
Mm.
What's your story, Joanne?
Oh, I had an episode of sleep paralysis. I woke up,
Wow.
but I couldn't move.
Oh, did it happen often or just the once?
Oh, quite a while until I got treatment.
Oh,
Yeah,
dear.
but it was frightening.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow.
Mm, mm.
And Helen, does your cat wake you up?
Oh, yes.
I have
Does-
2 cats, so I totally know about that.
Yes, I'm thinking of getting them an electric blanket so they can sleep somewhere else.
Good luck, Helen. Don't spend too much money. You know what it's like as parents of cats, just throw money. Might as well go outside and throw it into the into the wind. You go and buy things for them, and they'll look at it for like 5 seconds and then just go, "Nah, I'll come and sit on your head instead. Thank you very much."
Yes.
Right.
Okay, does anyone have any questions about sleep? And I'll see if I can answer them as much as I know. Anything they're concerned about or something that's happened to them?
Has
What
this affected
happens
a lot
if
of
you're
workers?
afraid of sleeping because of nightmares?
Oh, that's no good. So are you doing anything to manage that, Joanne?
Yeah.
Very good.
Mhm.
Alan, you were going to say something?
How does this affect shift workers? Because quite often it's very hard to get sleep after night shift sometimes.
It is, and shift
Mm.
workers do suffer because
Yeah,
their sleep
that's
is disrupted.
Mm.
And again, depending on how your personal, physiological makeup works, some people cope with it well. Just like I said, some people cope with a few hours sleep and some people don't. Some people can't continue to do shift work because of the impact that the disruption to their sleep impacts them. So it's there's no one answer. There's rarely one answer for people when it comes to how they manage their physical environment and themselves when it comes to sleep.
Fair enough.
Okay, so separate sleeping, what's it all about? My husband and I were able to do this relatively easily, as I think we were both on the same page when it came to wanting to get our sleep. That was really, really important to us. But for Helen, I can see the cat. I'm just such a cat tragic. Do we have a cat name?
Pushkins.
Pushkin's, very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So it's not so easy for every couple to come to the decision to sleep separately. And what I say to people is what's really important is being able to clearly articulate why you need to do this. What is important to you that is the reason that you have to sleep separately. If you do want to escape your partner, that's a whole other book. That's got nothing to do with my book. You need to go and find out. Let's get some other help. But if you have a good communicative relationship with your partner, you should be able to articulate to them and explain to them why your sleep is so important. And you hope that your partner, if they love you and they care about you, is going to understand and respond in a positive way to why you need to get that separate sleep. So I talk about in my book the different stages of sleeping separately. So it's not a 1 and a 0. It's not in a black and a white situation. For some couples it is, but for some couples it could be a way of just managing your sleep across each week or month or however long so that you sleep separately sometimes. Very clever terminology. I call it sometimes separate sleeping because it doesn't have to be, as said, such a binary decision. A few couples I spoke to when I was writing the book, they slept separately when one of them had a need to be really well rested for work the next day. One couple, he was an eye surgeon, and when he had a lot of surgery booked in the next day, they went to separate beds so that he could sleep and make sure that he was very well rested. And you would really want to think that if someone is operating on your eye, that they have had a good night's sleep. And so he did that. Another couple, the husband, he used to travel a lot, so he would wake up at sort of 3:30 in the morning and get up and get ready so that he could get out to the airport to get an early flight. And his wife, she wanted to get her sleep. So whenever he was doing that, they would agree that they would go to separate rooms and they would just manage it on a very practical level. For some couples, it's just a matter of working it out when the situation arises. So if you hop into bed and it's not working, so you go, look, I can't sleep. I'm either, too awake or you're too noisy, whatever happens. And then you just give them a kiss and go, I'm popping out to the other room. Or you go, right, that's it. We have to be in separate bedrooms. So what now? And a very common question that is asked of me is if a couple isn't sleeping in a bed together, how are they having sex? And if we can be that blunt. So the reality is if the only way you're going to have sex as a couple is be in the same bed together, again, go get a different book. Because we, when we were youngsters and we didn't live together, we still managed to make it happen, even though we weren't hopping in the same bed together every night. And I also challenge people, they're like, oh, there will be no intimacy. And I say, well, what is intimacy in a relationship? If you only think that intimacy is sex, again, a different book, but there's all sorts of different ways that you can be intimate. So what Fraser and I do, and this, I promise this isn't going to be X-rated, what's really important is when Fraser goes to bed before me. So we always make sure that there's a good night kiss. Now, sometimes if Fraser's gone off to bed, he has said he goes to bed way before I do, I'll go through to his room to make sure that I give him a kiss goodnight before he goes to sleep. If I haven't gone through and he's about to go to sleep and I'm in some other part of the house, he'll come up and he'll come through and he'll say, I'm going to sleep now, night, night, and we have a kiss goodnight. I go through, I sit on the bed if I can find space with the cats, and we'll have our chat, we'll do our debrief. So there's no rules per se, but the rule is there needs to be a kiss goodnight. Sometimes he texts me which I know some people find it a little bit kind of over the top. But if he doesn't want to get out of bed, especially if it's cold or something, and he'll say, I'm about to go to sleep now, and pops me a text. And so I'll go through and I'll give him a kiss goodnight. Very rare that that he doesn't, we don't have a kiss goodnight. So that's really important. First thing in the morning, because he's up before me, is he gets up, he gets showered, gets dressed, and he comes through and he gives me a kiss in the morning. And that's our ritual. It's really important to us. It's super important to me. And I think over the years, it's become even more important to Fraser, is that we have that connection. And we make sure that we always do that, because I know that sleeping in a bed with a person does give you that really close connection to them. We don't have that. We're managing in a practical sense. So what do we do to make sure that we stay connected with each other? You know, you often get leveled at you. You're just like housemates who have sex. And it's like, well, it's actually not. It's a little bit different to that. And if I don't want to think I'd be in a relationship where I'm having sex with my housemate, but whole other story. I have got a couple of stories from people that I interviewed that have always stuck with me. There was a couple I interviewed, and they would sit every night and have a cup of warm milk together. As I said the other day, warm milk, couldn't do that. But that was their thing. They sat at the kitchen table. They had their warm milk together, and then they would go upstairs together and then head off to bed. Is that warm milk, Sandy? No.
No.
Just checking. Are you doing that thing where you've got wine in there and pretending it's tea? Has everyone seen that on the internet?
Blowing it.
You blow on it to make it look like it's hot, but it's actually wine.
Everybody just
So we're on to you, Sandy. Yeah.
but I'm not telling you what else I've added to it.
Absolutely. We're on to that. Yep. Blow. Yep. So there was that couple. And another was an older couple. This was actually a lady. I was being interviewed on ABC radio, and a lady phoned up, and she was in her 70s, and her and her husband had slept together for a very long time, slept apart, sorry, for a long time. And she had a bell that she would ring when she wanted him to come and visit her room, which I just thought was hilarious, inventive. But I don't know what happened when he got there, so we didn't get into that detail. But when she wanted him to visit, she rang her bell and he would come down the hallway. How cool is that?
Good idea.
Fraser and I send each other cat memes, if we're both in bed. I don't know if that's quite the same, probably not quite as romantic, but it's still just that connection. I actually did hear a little, thing. I don't know where I heard it, a little soundbite on the news, that if you and your partner send each other little messages and memes and things like that, it's actually a sign that you're really well connected. So that made me feel really good. Mind you, if you did look at the conversation between my husband and I, it is mainly about cats, which is, a little bit of a tragic. But anyway, that's what gets us through. So making sure that you work out what works for you and what keeps you connected. And it can change over time as well. Just because you do something for a few years doesn't mean you can't change it after that. Keep that communication going and do what works for you. Which brings me to my next point, which is your relationship is your relationship. And this just goes, anywhere, and it's beyond sleeping. It's in anything that you want to, however you want to manage your relationship is really up to you. The social judgments that come along with what couples choose to do to make their relationship work makes me laugh a lot of the time, because I kind of think, it's up to you and what makes you happy and what keeps you connected and how you want to live your life. And, reality is sort of comes down to us as individuals. And so people can say really whatever they want about, and there's probably lots of people who have an opinion about Fraser and I sleeping separately, but seriously don't really care, in the nicest possible way. I'd rather people ask me questions about it. But it's up to you to work out what's going to work for you in any aspect of your relationship. And so that's the approach that we've taken. Now, I'm keen to hear from you guys. Is anyone
in Victorian times? It was the norm. They had their own bedrooms and visited each other. That was the norm.
Tell us a bit about that, Jenny.
Yeah, well,
Pardon?
it's yeah, a little bit more about that, definitely. And certainly Western culture, and from the probably sort of, it's actually the Industrial Revolution that had an impact on how we sleep in Western culture, believe it or not, because we were a lot more agricultural. And when people lived out in farms, there was also a lot of sharing of sleeping quarters. And then when the Industrial Revolution hit and we all moved into the cities and we started to live in smaller spaces, the group sleeping just wasn't, it wasn't done because you were living in houses and units and all of those sorts of things. So we ended up a little bit more separated from each other. Then came the media, and they started to portray, television. Television had a lot to do with it. So here's some fun facts. Who remembers I Love Lucy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
you probably never noticed, but you never saw Lucy and Desi in bed together. One of them always had their feet on the floor. And they're in very kind of, high neck, the bedwear was
cover up clothing.
Yes, very modest. But no, there was always one of them had their feet on the ground. And prize, if anyone can tell me, not the people that were in the other day, who the first couple was that was shown to be in bed together on television.
Don't know.
The Bradys?
No.
No.
Fred and Wilma Flintstone.
Cartoon characters.
They weren't real.
But they were the first couple actually shown in bed together. Said Lucy, I Love Lucy. That was the first one where they actually had like a couple in a bedroom. But as I said, the feet were always on there. And also, who can remember what the more common arrangement was in bedrooms kind of back in the 50s and 60s?
Double beds. Single beds
Two single beds. And so when a
Yeah.
couple went to bed, there were two single beds because, of course, you can't have sex when you're in single beds. So, that was
true.
exactly, Maxine. Exactly. Which goes back to my earlier point. You don't just have to be sleeping in a bed together every night to have sex. Yes, but the people.
The good couches in most places.
Exactly, Joanne. It's everywhere. The back of the car. Hello. So, sorry, I completely lost my train of thought there. Sorry. So we've had these images and these this is where we get our guilt from, from what we've seen on the media, and the puritanical kind of approach that, we can't show a bedroom with a double bed in it, we have to show two single beds because we can't let the people think that our couple on television are having sex, whereas everyone's like, of course they are, how did they have kids, However, that's what we do, and we're still at the we're still at the mercy of the media in terms of the sorts of images we see that create our social norms, that create our behaviours, that impact our values, that make us look and feel. Look, human beings need to belong. We just have an innate need to belong. We want to be liked by people. It comes from when we were cave people, and if we got kicked out of the tribe, then we'd get eaten by a woolly mammoth. So we like to have the same sorts of behaviors, so we belong to a particular group, and you sometimes do it really consciously, you sometimes do it unconsciously. And so if you have with a group of people and they're all going, oh my God, can you believe it, someone sleeps separately, and you're not feeling confident about your social standing in that group, you might not want to share that you sleep separately because you fear you're going to be judged. I'm thinking of the trad wives. Everyone know what a trad wife is? This new trend of these traditional wives who like to, grind their own wheat to make their bread and make their own, the one who makes their own gum, their own chewing gum. Oh, save me. So, I can't imagine that any of them are probably saying, oh, I'm going to go and sleep separately. They're probably doing it, but they wouldn't be talking about it. Again, we are funny beasts. We really are, the sorts of things that we impose on ourselves. But if it is affecting your health, then you need to challenge it. One of the ladies that I spoke to, that was actually the person who said to me, you should write a book about this. It was a colleague, and she had been sleeping separately from her husband for 12 years. She had not told one person, and her husband went to the lengths that the master room, they actually built a new house and with 2 master rooms, and they still hadn't told anyone. But she would have items of clothing hanging in his room, and she would have jewelry and makeup and stuff on his dresser, so it looked like she was in the room. And they were doing that in the second house as well. It always blew my mind. It's just like she just said, I just can't bear to admit that we don't sleep in the same bed. And so she said to me, she said, Jenny, you need to write a book about this. And I thought, there's got to be more.
Had a separate bed.
Absolutely, Lynn. I know. All the royals do. They take care of their sleep. And this is the thing. It's like, prioritize yourself as far as your sleep goes. That is just so important. That's the bit that really does blow my mind. When you have husbands who are going, I can't sleep without my wife. It's like, do you want her in a separate room, or do you want her for like 5 years less? Because sleep deprivation opens you up to so many medical issues. It's phenomenal. I know you guys all get taught how to go researching on the internet. Look up what happens when you're sleep deprived, because it's frightening. It's really frightening. I know I sort of talked about the plaque in your brain, but it's terrible. Blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes. It can contribute and it can exacerbate all of these
Your fault.
Oh, so it's just so important to just go, I love you, darling, but I want to be healthy. I want to be around for you. I don't want to sacrifice my health. And if the person, that's a bit, I go, but if you actually really love them, don't you want them to be here for longer? What would I know? So, we're all different. We are all very different. Okay, we're coming close to the end, and I'm starting to ramble now. See, this is where I get into my feisty stage. A number of conversations I've had with people. So it's it's an interesting space, a very interesting space to be in. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Does anyone here know any couples that sleep apart? Did anyone have parents who slept separately?
Yeah, Jenny, I did.
Did you?
I have a couple who are friends at the moment. She has to have a special bed nowadays, and she was very upset that she had to sleep apart from her husband. And I said, but your health is important. And her husband said, you tell her. They call me mum.
Good on you, Maxine. Good on you.
I'm only 7 years older than them, but I'm called mum.
Well,
and I said, and since she's had this new bed, she sleeps so much better, and she doesn't get so many illnesses.
Ta-da!
Many years ago, would be 30 years ago now, and that's a long time ago. But I had 2 friends who were married, and they slept apart all that time.
And they were happy and happy relationship.
They were the best. They were the best couple. They're both gone. They're both gone now. But she actually had to go into a nursing home, and he lived for another 10 years after she passed away.
And Maxine, your friend who got the new bed, has she kind of settled into sleeping separately from her husband? Do you think she's kind of seen the payoff?
Yes, she knows the benefits now.
That's good.
Yes, yeah.
That's an awesome story.
It took her 6 months though, which to me doesn't sound very long. It's like I had to learn to live without anybody because when I was 80, my husband passed away. I'd never lived on my own before that.
Mm.
It took me 12 months to come to realise that I could exist on my own, and then I could live on my own. I didn't have to just exist.
Yeah, I'm the same as you, Maxine. I sort of up until I was married for 43 years, and my husband, we slept in the same bed for the whole time. And the hardest thing for me after Bob died was actually learning to be me by myself.
Yep. Yes,
and
that's exactly right.
be in a house by myself, to sleep by myself. Like I would find that I would wake up 2, 3, 4 times every night, and it has taken me, well, it's now 5 years since my husband died, and it's taken me this long to learn how to sleep by myself and to get a good night's sleep because I'm having to sleep by myself.
I'm glad you got this, Sandy.
Yeah, it's just taken such a long time.
Yeah.
And yet when I was married, I used to, I must admit, slept perfectly well the whole time, but sleeping by yourself is like your story in reverse. It's
exactly. I'm so glad you said that, because this is it. Like some couples just fit like a glove in bed together, and great, that's fantastic. I don't think this is for everyone.
No, I can see that, and as I say, it's like I feel like I've had to do it in reverse. That I've had to learn to that I can sleep by myself.
I didn't
That's
have to
very
learn to sleep by myself. I had to learn to go to sleep.
Got rid of the big bed and got a
smaller one,
king single, and that cured me.
Alan, did you want to say something?
Yeah. I still sleep in the big bed, but I put a pillow in the middle of the bed, so it feels that someone's still over that side.
Need to get a cat, Alan. Get a cat. That'll take up.
I have a cat. I'll keep waking me up.
I used to do that, Alan, but I don't need to do that anymore.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
So I will say we do have several copies of Jenny's book that I'm happy to post out to some people if they if you are somebody who maybe is looking at this, or you've got a family member or a friend or a child or something that you want to suggest. So I'll leave it with Mary to just connect with everyone afterwards. And but yeah, just know that Jenny's going to sign all the books for us too. So
great.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for having me in your book club. It's been wonderful this week to chat to everyone and to share my story and have an opportunity to stand on my little soapbox and share my thoughts about sleeping. It's just so important. It really is. So make sure it's a priority in your life.
Yeah, I found it very, very interesting. Actually, I wasn't when I first heard you start speaking. I was thinking, am I really going to stay with this? And then I've learned an awful lot, and I found it really, really interesting.
Thank you, Sandy. That's very nice.
I've learned a lot actually.
Excellent. Very good.
And she's so entertaining, isn't she?
That's really enjoyed.
Yes.
Laugh at my own jokes all the time.
Well,
Thank
Sandy's
you so
going to have
much,
a lot
Jenny.
of tonight.
That's right. You can't make yourself laugh.
To convince the cats to sleep in a separate bed would be great.
Oh, Helen, you and I can write. You can write.
Yes,
you and I can write a book about that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the next book is the How to Sleep Divorce Your Cat.
Sleep divorce the cat, please.
I wish you
lucky if I get 6 hours with these two.
Yeah, I wish you every luck in trying to get your cat to sleep anywhere but on your bed. We had a Siamese cat that lived to be 20, And for 20 years, there was no way that cat was going to sleep anywhere but right in the middle of the bed.
Absolutely. They sleep wherever they want.
Yes, they choose.
I don't mind on the bed, but this one wants to sleep on me.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's mine. Yeah.
6 kilos or something, which is pretty heavy.
I hear your pain there, Helen.
My bedroom door doesn't close properly, so I need to barricade my door to keep my cat out. But if I do that, she just will spend hours jumping trying to get in, and wakes me up anyway. So
that's what they say, Jess. They go, shut your door, and you go, yeah, no, you don't own a cat, do you?
No. You're just convincing me of why I'm a dog person here, people, honestly.
Not telling you about all the cool things.
All right, well, we won't keep Jenny any longer, but thank you so much, Jenny. I really appreciate you popping in and
thanks, guys. Have a good night's sleep, everyone.
Thank you.
Great session, Jenny. Thank you so much.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye.